Mr. Azar, welcome in PTI and thank you for coming here.
Thank you, Shuja, for inviting me.
So we would like to begin with the current situation in the West Asia, particularly between Israel and Iran. Could you try and explain to our viewers what were the reasons as to why Israel took the action against Iran? Did Israel have definitive evidence about the Iranian nuclear program being an immediate threat?
Absolutely. Basically, what we did is we acted at the almost last moment we had in order to foil and remove Iran's plan for the extermination of our state. Iran has built in the last 30 years a strategy that would allow it to annihilate the state of Israel. For some people, it's very difficult to believe, but this is the truth. They have built a strategy that has basically three tracks. The first and the most dangerous track is the nuclear track, because this regime that has sworn to destroy us and has stated that multiple times was actually acquiring the means to have weapons of mass destruction. So they have deceived the international community and the IAEA for many years. And only last week, 10 days ago, the IAEA issued a report saying that Iran is in a situation of non-compliance of the safeguards agreement of the NPT. Why it has determined that? Because Iran has been conducting non-declared nuclear activities that it hasn't been able to explain why they are doing it.
Right.
Okay? And it was very clear for us that the clandestine group has been actually renewed activity on the weaponization of their enriched uranium. So not only they were having enrichment for no reason at all at very high levels, that is not justified in a peaceful civilian nuclear program, but also they were engaging in weaponization. So of course we couldn't allow a country that has sworn to destroy us to get the means to do that. Okay, so that is the first track.
Okay.
The second track, that is no less dangerous, is their ballistic missile program. We've been talking about this for years. Okay, and nobody really took it seriously. The Iranians built an arsenal of thousands of ballistic missiles, and actually they had a capacity to produce a quantity of missiles that would lead them to 20,000 ballistic missiles within 6 years. That means, when you do the math and you see that one missile has 1,000 kilograms, okay? 1,000 missiles are like a kiloton of TNT, which is equivalent to the nuclear bomb thrown at Hiroshima.
Okay.
So imagine they would have 20 of those. So that's another mean that the Iranians had in order to destroy us. And so we went to attack these two programs. And I must remind your audience that in the course of the last 20 months, we've been decimating the 6 armies that Iran has built in the region. They have, took advantage of the vacuum you have in West Asia as a result of the turmoil that happened in 2011 to build these armies and create immunity for themselves. So the Iranians have been attacking us indirectly for many, many years. Okay. And they were doing this with impunity because they had all these armies defending them. And only last year, in April and October, when we had a direct exchange, when they fired us these barrages of missiles and were retaliated, this was the first time that the Iran regime started paying for its aggression against Israel.
So, I'm sorry, what I would want to point out is this, this point of the ballistic missiles. That's perhaps the result what we are seeing right now happening in Tel Aviv and other cities. Like there are visuals of destruction, some of them very disturbing as well. How is the country dealing with it?
The country is very resilient. You know why? Because not only we are accustomed to attacks that we were subject to throughout the years. We've been suffering missiles fired from Gaza for many years now, since Hamas took over the Gaza Strip 18 years ago. We've been suffering from rockets and missiles coming from Lebanon, because Hezbollah was having the biggest stockpile of rockets and missiles in the world.
Okay.
That was directed against us. We've been able to deal with that, but Our population has been suffering for that for years. So we have built infrastructure, we have built shelters, we have built ways to protect ourselves against that. And now with these ballistic missiles, it's not that we are welcome. On the contrary, this is devastating. But we have created the tools, first of all, to bring down the numbers of missiles that are being fired at us, because they were planning to fire barrages of hundreds of missiles. And thanks to the operation of our defense forces, we've been able to diminish the number of missiles that are being shot. In addition, our air defense systems are basically targeting most of the missiles before they arrive. Unfortunately, a small percentage of the missiles are hitting our urban centers, and the result is very unfortunate. We have 24 dead, we have hundreds of wounded, we have damage in billions of shekels, but the public is more united than ever.
Okay, Mr. Reuven, Israel has always been, wanting that Iran abandon its nuclear program. But there's also a lot of commentary suggesting that Israel has acknowledged its own nuclear capabilities. How do you react to that criticism?
Well, first of all, we have stated that Israel will not be the first country to introduce nuclear weapons into the Middle East. But the difference is really staggering, because Israel hasn't threatened any country with annihilation. You have a situation here that you have the most extreme Islamic radical ideological regime in the world acquiring the most destructive weapons. In any security, there are several nuclear countries in the world, declared nuclear countries. They are not perceived a threat. And you know why? Because they are not calling to annihilate other countries. And they don't have this aggressive policy I was talking about before. So we have to be very cautious with countries that have radical ideologies, and especially with countries that are deceiving the international community time and again. So there's a huge difference here. We are a democracy, and we go to war, unfortunately, only when we are threatened. And in this case, we are threatened with our own existence. We had no choice. And this is a consensus in Israel. It comes from all the parties, that we have to take action because we want to survive.
Okay. Let's talk about the United States. It has not directly, been part of the military conflict yet. What are Israel's expectations from US?
Well, first of all, we are very grateful to the United States because it has given us the assistance that we need, first of all, to defend ourselves by ourselves. And this, by the way, has been, a principle that we have withheld for years. Israel is defending itself by ourselves. We are not expecting others to defend us. So as much as we are appreciative to the American assistance, we are not expecting America to fight wars for us. And therefore, whatever the United States decides to do, and President Trump decides to do, is going to be according to the American interests and American national interests. So we are coordinated with them. We are getting not only their military, but also their political and moral support. And that's very important. But we are not requesting others to come to our defense. We are defending ourselves.
In terms of working with US, has it been easier working with Donald Trump, President Trump, vis-a-vis the administration that was before?
We've been working with all administrations because the United States is not only the biggest ally of Israel, but it's really our friend. And we share values and we share interests. And sometimes, this doesn't mean that we will agree on everything. There were administrations in which we found it harder to see things eye to eye. Sometimes we had differences. So even with the Biden administration that we, had differences, we still enjoyed very generous assistance for which we are very grateful. I think that with the Trump administration, our worldview is more in alignment, especially when it comes to dealing with its rogue elements, like the Iranians.
Also pointing to what, Prime Minister Netanyahu recently said, that targeting Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, would perhaps end the conflict. Some of the ministers have also voiced the same thing. In your view, what could be the impact of such a strategy?
Well, first of all, this is not our decision. The Israeli cabinet has taken a very accurate, a very, say, designed, meticulously designed decision to target the nuclear program and the missile program. And therefore, we have taken action against military targets, against the commanders of the Iranian armed forces, Revolutionary Guards, the scientists that were part of this criminal scheme. Okay, we haven't taken a decision to target the leadership of Iran. I think that future will tell when it comes to what we are going to decide to do in order to promote our military targets. But at this point, this is not part of our policy.
Okay. So while you are engaged with Iran, there is also the other theater in Gaza that is prevailing. And we recently saw a number of people, dead while trying to get aid. UN rights groups and others have commented as well. How does the country react to that kind of criticism?
Well, first of all, we are not targeting people for trying to get food. This is complete nonsense. What we have seen is that there were Hamas forces that were trying to prevent people from coming and getting food. And this is very unfortunate. We've seen that in the past, because when we started retaliating against Hamas aggression on the terrible aggression on the 7th of October, we saw that Hamas is trying to prevent population from getting out of harm's way and are trying to use them as human shields. So first of all, we have that problem. Hamas is basically working against any rule of humanity, any norm that was written in order to try to survive, hiding behind civilians, putting headquarters under hospitals, hiding themselves behind the UN facilities, etc. So this has been a challenging issue for us, but this cannot give them impunity. There have been issues from time to time in which aid workers were under danger. They felt under life danger. They had to react. But this humanitarian effort we are doing now is extremely successful. We've been able to handle tens of millions of meals to needy Gazans. We are taking this effort out of Hamas' hands because Hamas has been sequestrating this aid in order to continue having a grip on the population. And we are very determined, Shuja, to get into a situation in which not only we bring back our hostages, but we make sure that Hamas no longer controls the Gaza Strip. So this is an effort that takes time because we have to balance between endangering the lives of the hostages and taking out Hamas. But we are consistent in our effort. We have been able to bring back more than 200 hostages. We're still left with 53, out of them about 20 alive. But we will go through. We will see this through. And, the human cost of this is indeed very tragic. And we lament any loss of life, not only on our side, but also on the Palestinian side. And I think the Palestinian people deserve a better leadership. They deserve being freed from the hands of the grip of this terrible terrorist organization that has been radicalizing them, abusing them, oppressing them for the last 18 years.
But it is carried for a long time now, and as you pointed out, there is a human cost at it. Is there a timeline that Israel has in mind, or a solution, to put an end to it?
Well, it's going to take time because of what I told you. Because we have to balance between the risk. This could end today if Hamas would have released the hostages and renounced power in the Gaza Strip. So the suffering can happen very fast. The issue is that when you have a terrorist organization that doesn't care about their own people, that actually is abusing their own people, that is using their own people as human shields, then it's very difficult to do it fast. It takes time. We cannot commit to a timeline because at the end of the day, if we stop being stubborn about this and we allow Hamas to stay in the Gaza Strip, they will rearm, regroup, as they have stated, by the way. It's not just a guess, to launch another 7th of October again. So, the Israeli public, as much as it didn't want to invade Gaza Strip, because we left the Gaza Strip completely in 2005, and we don't want to control Palestinians there. We had no choice but to enter because we were time and again attacked by this terrorist organization. So it's a hard situation. It's very challenging, but we have to see it through.
Closer home, there is, a lot of worry of course, because of the situation there, about foreign nationals of all countries, but particularly about Indians. How is Israel helping or assisting in evacuation of the foreign nationals?
We are in constant contact with MEA on all subjects that have to do with evacuation of civilians. We've been cooperating in this since the beginning of the war, and this cooperation continues. We have open channels, and whatever message we get from the Indian government, we take it very seriously in order to make sure that all Indian citizens are safe.
Do you see, or rather, what kind of role do you see India playing in de-escalating the situation, particularly between Iran and Israel?
India is a force for good. Is a country that wants stability and needs stability in order to continue the very speedy development of your economy. Something that we see positively, and we try to engage with that as much as we can. I believe that if we manage to defeat the radical forces, stability and prosperity could not only be restored, but India has a major role to play in our region because it brings with it a lot of opportunities for development and prosperity.
Okay.
The whole issue of connectivity between Asia and Europe that can pass through the Middle East, the extreme energy that is coming from this country in terms of workforce, in terms of initiatives, entrepreneurship, logistics, high tech. It's very difficult for any entrepreneur to invest for the long term when you have threats, terrorist threats, like the threats from Hamas, threats from the proxies of Iran or from Iran itself. So I believe that this huge effort that Israel has embarked in to decimate these proxies of Iran and put Iran in a situation that has no choice but to change policy, or at least it won't be capable to throw all the havoc they've been throwing to the region for the last decades. I think this is something that is great news for the development of the region and the development of the world. And by defending itself, I think Israel is doing a great service to India, to the region, and to the world.
Last couple of points. But India has had, diplomatically, it's had a neutral position between Iran and Israel. How do you see that unfolding?
Well, India is not part of this conflict. And, as Israel is not part of the conflicts India has, but we share interests and we share values. And not only that, we cooperate to challenge those security threats, and we are doing it quite successfully. We have great cooperation. We are building together capabilities, military and defense capabilities. And this is derives from the fact that we have gained a huge amount of trust. And we are capable of leaning on each other when it comes to manufacturing the things that we need in order to defend our skies, in order to be more effective in the way we deal with terrorism. And this, I think, is a huge blessing for both countries.
So last thing, in this whole thing, would you want to give our viewers, a sense whether Israel is also has plans of solving this diplomatically with Iran?
Well, we've been trying to solve this diplomatically for the last 3 decades, Shuja. And there have been multiple stakeholders that have been engaging with the Iranian regime. Unfortunately, this was exploited by the Iranians to continue their campaign of destruction, of amassing of unconventional weapons of mass destruction. So we got to a juncture that we understood that if we don't take action, this is going to actually lead to our annihilation. Okay? So once we deal with that, I think, and once the Iranians feel that their regime is in danger, I think the chances are much increased that you will have a diplomatic outcome. Because until now, the Iranians weren't really negotiating in good faith and in a reasonable way. So in order to get them back to the table, to actually renounce these malign plans, we had to take this military action. And I think this effort is going to eventually contribute to the diplomatic efforts the different stakeholders are trying to promote.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for coming here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.